The first thing you want to do in your terrarium is you want to put down a drainage layer. For a terrarium this size, you want to make sure your drainage layer is about 1 inch deep. What I'm putting in here is Josh's Frog's drainage layer. Push it down a little bit. Now what this drainage layer does is it allows the excess water to drain through your soil and sit down here instead of sitting in your soil and rotting your plant roots. The next layer that we'll be putting down is a horticultural charcoal layer. And the reason we're going to put that down is to keep your soil fresh and to keep your terrarium smelling fresh. And this will just filter the excess water that gets pulled down into the drainage layer. Now you only need a light layer for this. The next layer will be moist sphagnum moss. Now when you get this, it'll come dehydrated in a bag, and what you want to do is rehydrate it with reverse osmosis water, bottled water, distilled water. Do not use tap water. That's not good for your terrarium. So we're going to take this and we're going to put a light layer down, patting down as we go. And what this does is it prevents the soil from washing down into your drainage layer. So just get all the openings and make sure that it's nice and tight so the soil can't leach down. Just a thin layer is needed just to get enough coverage. The next step in building your terrarium is to put in your terrarium soil. Now this is a 1-quart bag, Josh's Frog's terrarium soil. And you want to make sure that you use terrarium soil because it's lighter and it allows the roots to breathe and it has good drainage. You want about a 2-inch layer of terrarium soil. So just fill it up and pat it down as you go. You want to get a good layer in there so it'll cover the plant roots. Now we're going to be putting the plants into the terrarium, and the thing about this is you need to use your imagination. You don't need to have a flat surface in your terrarium. If you want to make it look interesting, you can make this soil uneven, scoop it up. And I'm going to do a couple of different tiers in this terrarium to give it a little interest. So I'm going to push the soil to the back and make it higher, and I'm going to make it lower in the front. And I'm going to be adding a manzanita burl, and that's going to be acting as a barrier for my soil so it doesn't fall down. So just pat your soil down. You can do anything you want to make it look interesting. You don't need to have just a flat layer. So here I've built 2 tiers in the terrarium. I'll turn it to the side so you can see the back is higher and the front is lower, and it just gives a little more visual interest. Now we'll be putting our plants in. I'm going to put my variegated brake fern in. And you want to take your plant and just remove any excess soil from around the root. Try not to disturb the roots too much. Just have a nice little root ball here. And I'm going to use my spoon. I'm going to dig a hole, move some of the soil out of the way. Then I'm going to use my bamboo stick to move some more soil. And this is a really handy tool. You want to very gently hold your plant by the leaves to keep it upright. Gently tap the root ball down into the terrarium soil. And then just take your hand and move the soil around the root. And if it's a little crooked, just straighten it up. A lot of these plants are not as tender as you think. They can take a lot, and you don't have to be afraid to handle them. Next, we'll be planting our peacock spike moss. Same thing. Flip your pot over and very carefully remove the excess soil. You want to get the root ball as small as you can without disturbing the plant too much. Okay, I'll take my spoon again, and I just want to plant my peacock spike moss over here so it's draping down the tiers. So you want to again make a hole with your spoon, move the soil out of the way, gently press your plant in place. I'm going to switch to the bamboo stick. I'd like to have my peacock spike moss cascading down to the second tier. It gives a little more interest. Take your stick and just move your soil around the plant. Now, if you break off a little piece of the plant or break off a leaf, don't worry about it. It won't hurt the plant. Just take your scissors and cut it off. And next, I want to plant my gold tip spike moss. Same thing, flip your pot, shake your plant out, remove the excess soil. This is a low growing plant, so I'm going to be putting this way down front. So I'm going to just use my bamboo stick, push the soil out of the way. If you need to, use your spoon. Really, you can use anything that you have in your kitchen that'll help you get the job done. If a bigger spoon works, then use a bigger spoon. I'm going to take my stick again, push the soil forward, and take a look at the front and make sure that your root's not exposed. If it is, cover it with soil. Now, I like to use smaller plants in the terrariums because I like to give the plants a chance to grow and fill the environment that they're in. Plus, they're a lot easier to handle when they're real small. So I'm just going to take my hand and tap the soil down to make sure everybody's got good contact here. Move my branches and leaves and vines around where I like them to go. Push everything down. Now would be a good time to add any type of little things that you'd like to put in the terrarium. I have a little manzanita branch here, a little broken piece, and I'm just going to stick that in the back here. What I'm trying to do is achieve just a natural appearance. It is a woodland garden, and I want it to look like something you might find when you walk through the woods. And I just have a rock here. I'm just going to put the rock down front to give it a little interest. Really, you can use anything that you can find. Rocks, branches. So here's my woodland garden. And the next thing and the last thing that I would like to do is put a top layer on it. Now, you don't have to do this. This is fine just like it is. You can be finished. But I like that little top layer. It gives it a finished look. And what I'm going to be using today is shredded pine bark. And I'm just going to take it and sprinkle it on the top of the soil. I like the way this looks. It gives the terrarium a finished appearance, and it also makes it look like something you'd find on the forest floor, which goes really well with our woodland themed terrarium. Mosses and ferns makes it look better. Now that we have our terrarium planted, we need to water it. And I like to use a spray bottle. What you want to use is reverse osmosis water, distilled water, bottled water. Do not use tap water. Tap water is not good for your plants in the terrarium. Tap water has chlorine in it, it has minerals, and it'll build up and hurt your plants. So just be on the safe side, use RO water or distilled or bottled. And you want to squirt your plants, wash all that soil off your plant leaves, give it a good spray. And don't give it too much of a drink. Watch how it drains down into your soil layer and make sure you're not overwatering. Overwatering is a common issue and a problem in terrariums because it's such a small enclosed environment. It takes a lot longer for the water to evaporate than it does in an open container. So we're going to spray my plants, taking a break and letting the water leach down into the soil to make sure I'm not overwatering. And you might need to wait and give it a little while and come back later and finish. I'm just going to give it a good spray. Again, checking for how much water I'm putting in. And I'm cleaning everything off too. Now you don't want to overwater. If you do, the water will come down through all the layers and it'll drain into your drainage layer. So it'll pull all that excess water away from your soil so your plant roots won't rot. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of water on the inside of my terrarium, so I'm just going to wipe that off with a paper towel. If you weren't using reverse osmosis water or distilled water and you were using tap water, every time you water your plants, you're going to get water droplets on the inside of your terrarium. And of course, repeated applications of tap water on glass will leave spots that you're going to have a very difficult time getting off. So that's another reason why we don't use tap water. And for demonstration purposes, I'm not going to water this all the way, but you get the idea. Keep watering until you have a nice wet layer of soil and all the way to the bottom of your charcoal layer. And there we have it, our finished woodland garden terrarium. All of these products that I've used today are available at joshsfrogs.com. And of course, if you have any questions, you can check out our website. We have many tutorials and how-to videos on our website and articles, or you can contact us by email or here by phone at Josh's Frogs.